Okay, what I want to show you today very quickly is how you can use the general practice software called Vision. And this is really going to be designed for those people who are perhaps going to locum in a practice that uses Vision and have never used it before, and also hopefully it'll be of some help to those who have used it in the past and need a bit of a refresher as to some of the main applications that you would use on a day-to-day basis and you'd be expected to know. Obviously today I'll be using a test patient, completely dummy. This bears no reference to any real person, who's called Mickey Test Transfer. I'm slightly restricted as to what I can show you today by confidentiality, as of course some of the other windows have actually got real patients in, and I don't want to give away any personal information. So the first screen you would get on Vision would obviously be your waiting screen. That would tell you your appointments, and you would then click on the name. And so if your next appointment was Mickey Test Transfer and you clicked on that, what would come up would be this page here. And on the left hand side here you've got some sort of headings under which I actually very rarely use these. I'll go through that in a bit. Bottom left you've got a little bit of information about some calculations Vision might do for you, like their CHADS2 score and their Q risk, etc. The main screen in the middle is your main history screen, and that's got lots of information in it. And then across the top you've got some shortcuts here, which I will show you how to use in a moment. So I suppose the first thing to look at is in order of what you might want to know when you see a patient, is initially their summary. So if you click on the top left there, I've got a summary tab there. And you click on that, and that tells you some of the background information on this gentleman, Mickey Test Transfer, and and the only things that appear on here are either priority naught, which are things like this one here that's been dotted out, which if you click on the magnifying glass here, you'll find out what it is. So sometimes some more confidential information might be given a priority 0. I'll show you how you put that in when you take the history. And obviously if there's significant history such as vascular dementia or ischemic heart disease, you'd have that down as 1. So it's quite useful sometimes just to press summary so you can see a bit of background on the history of the patient, particularly if you don't know them. So the moment you press summary, it comes in under the filtered tab at the top. To get back to the tab where I can see the patient's history, the entire history, I click on journal. That tells me everything about that patient. I can scroll all the way down as far as it goes, and that gives me the history in chronological order. The tab next door to it gives me information about the patient, their address and their contact information. There's a family tab along the bottom, which is useful if you want to see any other members of the family, and those are the two that I normally use. So back on journal, so if the patient was to come in and had, for example, asthma, let's say you were making a diagnosis of asthma, so I could just type in along the bottom here, the read term add, this bottom bit here. If I just type in ASTH, it'll pick it up, press enter. It comes up, so it comes up with asthma annual review. Now if I click the down arrow button, I get other read codes that might go alongside asthma, such as respiratory monitoring. And of course, if I do put asthma in, that then goes in as a diagnosis of asthma, which would obviously then have QOF, an impact on QOF. You'd then be expected to fulfill the criteria, but actually it might actually just be respiratory monitoring if you're assessing their asthma rather than making the diagnosis. that would be a more appropriate read code. If I then press F3, that's quite useful if I can't find what I actually want to find under the read code. And if I then untick display from formulary, it then gives me an alphabetical list of read codes that it thinks are similar. So that can be useful to find the right read code, which is important when entering information, obviously. So once I have respiration monitoring, that's what I want to put in. I click enter or hit OK, and then under here, under the comment box, I enter my history, whatever that might be. So we'll just say shortness of breath, on exacerbation, and a wheeze, and obviously I'd enter my clinical details. And I think asthma is an important diagnosis, so I'd like it to appear in the summary that we talked about earlier. And so I would then put at the bottom left hand priority, if I put in priority 1 and then click OK, what I'll end up with is the information I've just put in has gone up to the top there under today's date. If I like, I can right click it and hit edit if I need to add anything to it. If I then click on summary now, we've got under the summary respiration monitoring. If I had made the diagnosis of asthma and put it under the asthma read code, that would obviously be a more relevant thing to have in my summary. So that's how you enter a history into the summary, into the patient's history notes. The green apple here can be quite useful if you just want to add a smoking or blood pressure, their weight or their height. You just right click over the top of it and hit add, and you can then add in their height, etc, etc. And then if you click on this yellow tab up here, that brings you back to the history page where we were beforehand. So that's quite useful to know. So if we want to diagnose something for our patient that we just diagnosed with asthma, if we come across to the therapy tab here, this here tells us everything the patient takes. Now we've got 3 tabs across here. I tend to use just scripts, which is everything they've had, and repeats, which is obviously everything they're having on repeat at the moment. If there's a medication review, if someone wants their medication reviewed, then it'll give you the date there, and if it's in yellow, then you just click on it, and you can click OK and review their meds. So scripts, this tells us everything, as I said, they've ever had. Repeats is everything that you want them to have on repeat. So if I want to prescribe this gentleman some salbutamol, all I do is when I'm in the therapy box here, if I start typing, if I just start typing salbutamol, it comes up. So I go SAL, salbutamol, that's good enough, and click enter. And it'll come up with what it thinks is the most likely thing I'm after. And again, if I use the up and down cursor keys, it brings up all the alternatives. And again, if I press F3, I can then get a alphabetical list of all the different medication. And again, if I take this cursor out of the formulary box top right, I get everything that's not on the formulary as well, which is sometimes useful. So I'm going to use salbutamol, 200 mics, a powder inhaler here, and I click on the little medicines tab here, and that tells me the different quantities that I can prescribe. So if we're going to go for 100 dose, okay, and then down here, these are the instructions I want him to do, which is currently set as 1 puff up to 4 times daily, and I'm happy with that. If I wanted to leave any notes for the patient or for the pharmacist, I can use this tab here. I click that, and that's information for patient, information for dispenser, and then I just hit OK, and it's giving me some. It realizes that what I'm trying to prescribe, there is actually a generic script. So I'll prescribe the Ventolin, which is the generic one. So double click on that, and that will then now give me the generic one. Often you can click this tab here if there is, it's called script switch, I believe, and it will advise you on other things you can switch to if you want to switch to a generic drug. Sometimes it does this. I don't actually really know why it sometimes does that. Sometimes it's not actually very intuitive, but essentially you would soon get the hang of it. You click OK, and it gives you a lot of the safety information about the medication here in case there's an obvious contraindication that you might have missed. And if you're happy with that, you still want to prescribe it, you hit yes and proceed. And so that then appears there in green. And then when you press F9, that brings up what you've prescribed but haven't actually printed. And then if I either press F9 again or finalize, you'll hear that printing off now. So that's how I can prescribe something. If I want to go to repeats, this is my repeat screen, and what I can do here is this tells me what they've got on repeat. So obviously this guy's got an awful lot on repeat, but he's not real. But I can give you the ones that have blue writing in this little notepad here. These ones are ones that don't need reauthorizing. This one here, these lancets at the top here, these need reauthorizing. So to reauthorize it, I just highlight it and then I press this one here, and that reauthorizes it. So if I click that, I can reauthorize that. Now if I wanted to print several of these, all I do is click which ones I want to print, and then I hover over the print icon up there and press print, and it'll tell me it's the last issue, etc., etc. And that's how, and then it brings that up there, but I don't really want to print those, I'll cancel that. And I shall delete all of those because we haven't actually printed that, so I've put an error there, and so everyone knows now why those were deleted. So that's how you prescribe something. So if it's a one-off, then you put it in under scripts. If you want to make a repeat, then you put it under repeat. If it's a script, a one-off script that you want to make a repeat, like this Lamotrigine 100, if you press and hold the button down on it, you can then hold and drag across to this one here at the bottom here, and you can make that a repeat like that. And again, so how many repeats you want to give, quantity, instructions, so that's useful as well. So if we go back to journal, some other important things that you might want to do. One of them is obviously referrals. So if you want to refer him for his shortness of breath, if you press and hover down over, press the left button and keep it pressed down, and then drag up to the bow tie, like this, and then release. Either you can choose and book, in which case you need to select your urgency first of all, and then once you've selected your urgency, such as routine in this situation, you would normally be able to click this online booking form. You'd click that, and there's a small E in this top left-hand box here, which you can then click, and that'll take you onto the choose and book. But actually, if you just wanted to use one of the pre-formatted letters or template letters on the system, I just use the envelope down here, and again that'll load up Word and whatever is pre-formatted to. You can then, if I click on it, I can then just type in a number of. I can type in what it is I'm looking for, and it will bring it up, and then I can just click on that. So that's how you make a referral. A Med3 is under Add. You click on Add at the top there, and you come down, you hover over Med3, and that's how you enter your fitness to work. And obviously you can adjust that. But if you wanted, for example, just to make it 1 week, a shortcut, you don't have to put in a date necessarily, although you can just type in 1W, hit return, and it will come up. And clearly you put your diagnosis and your clinical diagnosis at the bottom, then hit print form here, that'll print that off for you. So that's that. Ordering blood tests, again, you go to add, and you go down to requests, and then electronic requests. And here, what you do here is you can request what blood you want. There's a search icon at the bottom there if you want to search for, I don't know, vitamin D or something like that you can't find. Or you can use any of the side menu bars here to help you find whatever it is you're after. Once you've requested, so if I want full blood count, for example, I click that, I click continue with request at the bottom left, and then here I type my clinical details, so some brief information. I don't think it matters which of these you collect, but which of these you tick, but I normally just tick collect now, and then you hit accept request. So if we type in rubbish here, collect now, and if I tick accept request, it'll bring up this here. I then just tick print there, and then I can tick proceed. Don't click proceed before you get that print, otherwise it won't happen. And so I can then click proceed, and that's gone through. In order to get the result of the blood test, it will appear on the history in the journal, but in order to see all the results to all the tests the patient has had, I can click on tests here, and it brings this information up. Clearly this patient has never been for any blood tests because they don't actually exist, but that's how you would do that. Again, you can search for anything using this bar across here, and that's very useful too. So that's that. History tab here brings up the major bits in the history. So not as major as a summary. You get much more information, as you can see when you click on history, but it takes away a lot of the finer, a lot of the sort of the information that you've added underneath the history, and just gives you the headline topic, which is quite useful. I don't really tend to use any of the other tabs, to be honest with you. Bottom right here is where you've got, not all systems have got this, but you've got your patient education leaflets, which I use again to print off information, for example, about long-acting reversible contraception. If you just click on that, it's fairly self-explanatory, and it'll print it out, and then it'll say on the history journal that you've actually given the patient that information. So that's useful. I'm trying to see what other information is useful for you to know. And I know there's a huge amount of tabs here, but actually I don't think there is a huge amount of other information. Blood pressure, if you just put in BP underneath the in the history box here under the read term, like you're entering in anything like we entered respiratory monitoring earlier on, if you just do that and click OK, then it's asked for your systolic blood pressure, so we'll put him down as a healthy 120/70. Click OK, and up it comes. So that's quite useful. And if I then hover over it and right click and press list, it'll bring up all the blood pressures that are on the system for this gentleman, which is obviously very good. And you can do the same for any blood tests, so like a hemoglobin, for example. You could right click, hover over whatever result it was you wanted to see, how it's changed over time, and right click and click list, or you can actually hit graph as well, which is useful. And I think that's pretty much everything you need to know about vision just to be getting on with. I think that would enable you to be able to probably get through a surgery, and no doubt you would pick up more just by using it. But I'm pretty sure that's enough to keep you going for a while. Thanks. One thing that I ought to mention, is that when you finish the consultation, you can click this little chair in the top left here, and that finishes it. Okay, so that's obviously useful to know. Otherwise, and that'll then take you back to your appointment screen. Another way to look at your appointment screen is just to press this left tab here, which will bring up your appointment screen. I won't press it because it'll bring up my actual appointment screen, but that's a way to pick up your appointments. And then the little man next door to it is if you want to search for a particular patient, and you enter obviously their surname first and then the first name. So that's that. And yeah, I'm pretty sure that's it for now.